Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living, right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Emmanuel, Enime. We're going to be talking about a lot of what he is doing, which is beautiful verses that he does on Instagram. The kind of verses of joining you, getting you to ignite your joy, maintaining your joy. He's here to defend people's joy. His God-given purpose is to be the father of the fatherless. Part of being a father is to help your children maintain their joy during the difficulties of life. He is helping those without a father. We need to keep our joy during the difficult times, because when we are the greatest of risk of sinking into despair or hopelessness, that's when we need the joy. Hard times are a great incubation of periods of unforgiveness. Get help with unforgiveness so you do not become bitter in hard times. He has so many wonderful verses that he has here, and I've taken a few of them that you can come back and look at, but it's talking about God's kindness and God's forgiveness and marriage, knowing who you're going to marry, and all sorts of stuff. So he's a motivator, here to kind of motivate us, inspire us, invite us to kind of being in tuned to our beautiful connection to the divine. Welcome to the show, Emmanuel.
Thank you for having me. If you guys are just listening, the glasses are officially off.
Yes, they are. Light as a bat without the glasses of reading content. Now it's free fall.
That's free for all, free for all. So yeah, I received a message from God last February, and the message told me to come to Zagreb, Croatia. And I prayed about it. I discussed this with some advisors and counselors, and I finally overcame my fears and worries and said, okay, all right, fair enough. Let's go. And we'll see what
see what happens when you get
there as we go. And it's been a very interesting journey. And using the word interesting is an understatement. Because I have gone into many different exit portals for my comfort zones. One being, I started writing poetry, and I read some of my poems to strangers on the street. I started approaching random strangers on the street in order to develop my conversational skills and to overcome my fears of rejection, and also to practice forgiveness after rejection, so to not hold something against someone because they didn't talk to me. And so all of this, and there are many other things, but all of this led me to the point where I can say in a soundbite, my God-given purpose is to help you defend your joy. And so I'll speak in a parable here. One must look at their joy as an entity that needs to be protected, because there are things in life that will remove some of our joy from us, in a sense. And so think of your joy as a snowball starting out at the top of an eternal mountain. And there is a thin strip of snow that a person must guide this snowball down for their entire life. And there are many things that want to draw a person away from that path, many temptations.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the temptation to work too much, the temptation to doubt that something good is going to happen in your life. Because some people are more prone to that type of mindset,
Yes, giving into
to
the
be
fear.
doubtful,
Mm-hmm.
and to feed that as well. And additional temptations being, I mean, things simply as, oh, I'm going to keep binge watching shows on Netflix. And so it's like you almost, in a sense, I can't control the next click.
Right.
Like, I gotta
yes.
watch that.
One could say that of the phone as well.
And so it's important for people to be mindful of the temptations that exist, and to make sure that in order to maintain your joy and maintain it through the difficult times in life, you have to understand and know the temptations and know the defenses that you must develop against them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, a simple one for someone who might have some issues with binge watching too many shows. Well, maybe that is a sign that you need to set yourself a daily schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to understand how to make a daily schedule, and you need to understand how to tweak it, and ways to increase efficiency and effectiveness with your daily schedule. And some of that will involve actually taking rest. So
Yes.
it's absolutely important. And I talked about the temptation to work too much.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Western world, there are a large number of people who have gotten tricked
Mm-hmm.
into this trap that they will prove their self-worth through their work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, hey, I was successful in this pursuit. This equals me. And so I have to work so hard to be successful in this job. That might even, I'll speak about myself, because I used to have that issue with cleaning my home. I mean, it was like this thing,
Obsessive compulsive.
right, unbearable to live with.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because in my head, it's like, hey, this is a reflection of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, if someone sees that this is a mess, then they're going to look at me like, hey, this guy doesn't,
Yeah.
like he doesn't have it together. And so
It was really more the worry about other people's perception.
And so that also plays in as well.
Yes.
The worry about other people's perception. And so, or that self-guilt, self-condemnation that I'm just not good enough.
Yes.
And so it's important for people to separate their self-worth from their work. And so you do, of course, you do a good job with your work, but that's not you.
I'm going to take
And
a little bit of a different angle on that, though.
okay.
All right. I have a business genre as well. And very much in business, we're saying to people today, in order for people to do business with you, they have to know you. You have to build a relationship, and you have to be just as authentic as you are in business, as you are in every aspect of your life. I think the differentiation is you must always be that authentic person on every level, business, play, in your own life. It's just don't let work be your dictator, right? The separating of your work and your joy and play in life, you can still be the same person. But what you're doing is changing channels. That's how you're going to channel that energy. You channel energy into business. You always want to be authentic. People want to know, I like you, so I want to do business with you, right? But it's the same with friendships. It's the same with every aspect, walking down the street, saying hello to people. The authenticity of who you are must always be you, must always reflect you. It's just know when to take the hats off, the business hat off, this hat off, and have time to be able to do the other things in life that bring you about balance and joy.
And so I would say that what I've heard you describe is, hey, improve your character to the point where every situation that you're put into, it's like, yeah, that's Sarah. Yeah,
Yes.
that's Sarah here.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, that's Sarah. And so it's like every situation. And I mean, some things are turned on in certain situations, some are turned off.
Right. Different hats,
there's
different
balance.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah, balance. But yeah, so that's what I'm getting at. That you that goes into all of these different situations throughout life, that's the you that I'm aimed at.
Right.
That inner person. And so I am aimed at people flipping this mindset to where it's like, hey, I'm going to focus heavily on my inner attractiveness.
Yes.
And so that being having joy and being pleasant to be around, even when times are difficult. And so in regards to speaking about positive mindset, this is the mindset that a person needs to have in order to successfully thrive in all situations throughout their life, even when the bombs are dropping around you. It's like, I'm going to have joy in the difficult times, and I am going to be pleasant to be around. People are going to still like being around me, especially when the times are difficult, because it's like, hey, man, this person is still hopeful. It's like, hey, this person is still happy, still singing. This person is still courageous and persistent. And
it's resonating on a higher vibration, isn't it? It's a higher frequency. The closer you are to living from a place of love, from being love, the more you're going to exude that love. And it doesn't matter what situation you're in. It always comes from that place of joy and love. You'll face whatever, but you don't allow your frequency or vibration to drop. It may change to the situation, but again, it's always been true to the core of that love, of that divine self.
Yeah. And so I know this might seem like a high mark to say, it's like, I should be happy, although the bombs are dropping around me. It's like, yeah, you can get there, and it's totally possible. And I talk about,
we're not saying that you can't be angry. or you can't be afraid. You're going to have those emotions. But if your core is one of joy and love, you'll go through those emotions, you'll spend them, but you
You'll
won't get
overcome
stuck
them.
in them. You won't get stuck in them, right?
And yeah, so that overcoming
Mm,
the doubt, fears, and worries, and shutting them out when they
yeah.
try to populate your mind.
Hmm.
And um, and it's possible. And
Yes.
so I talk about two women, Gladys Aylward and Amy Carmichael. They've since passed, but those are two good examples of women who went through difficult times as they were working on their God-given mission, and they remained joyful to the point where I can still feel their joy today. I can still feel their
Mm.
courage today through hearing their story. So Gladys Aylward, I every time I think about this, I'm like, whew, this young lady had some courage. So she's born in the early 1900s, I believe, and passed away in the mid 1900s. So she went to China to do mission work, and she got pretty integrated into her community in her village, and to the point where people knew her well enough. And there was one day she got called to go to the men's prison to resolve um, a situation. So the situation was one of the prisoners had gotten an axe and he had killed like one or two of the prisoners in the prison, and the guards couldn't handle the situation. So they called her. The woman is like 5 foot tall. They called her to go to the prison to sort it out.
Mm-hmm.
And she went into the prison and walked up to the guy and told him, "Give that to me, the axe." And he gave it to her, and then she kind of evaluated the situation in the prison, and she said, "Yeah, there probably should be some things changed here because this can give them a little bit more hope." And so she did a little bit of prison reform there as well. And so it's absolutely possible
Oh, yeah.
that people can get to this point. And so um, one thing that's important is first knowing that this place exists, or this mindset exists.
Mm.
Hey,
Yeah.
I should have joy during the difficult times. It's
Yes.
because once trauma occurs, or once um, very troubling times occur, like a war breaks out or something like that, this is when people are, or like even coronavirus, where people went into lockdown. This is the time when people go into their mental space and thoughts start to catch momentum,
Mm.
and people find themselves
Down a rabbit hole.
in a dark place.
Yes.
And so and so this is why it's like, hey, when you go into situations such as corona lockdown, that you can actually sit back and have joyful and pleasant and hopeful thoughts, and
Well,
learn how to defend against those, because the negative thoughts will come. It's just a matter of understanding how to defend your
right.
mind against those thoughts. Like,
Or to understand why they're there. I mean, through life, you're going to be facing many, many challenges. And the different
mhm,
degrees of those challenges are just according to life's journey. A little 5 foot dot going up to disarm a guy, she was mighty. got nothing to do with her sex or her size, is that she get there with authority that wasn't crippling, but just like, I'll take that. She diffused it because it was unexpected. She'd come at him with the violence, or would come out at him with force. It was a loving force. I'm disarming you. I'm disarming the situation, right? I'm not going to overpower you. I'm just disarming it. When we look at our challenges, and in many ways, the virus, except for those that obviously have lost their lives and people who have lost loved ones, that's a totally different situation. But in many ways, the virus became a gift of reflection for us to go in and look at our lives and look at it and go, am I where I want to be? Am I on the right path? Am I honoring my own meaningful purpose? What is my meaningful purpose? Or am I just mindlessly going through life? It was a great time to reflect of what really is important in our lives and how we could pivot to that proper calling and that proper purpose. Is that every time a challenge comes or a disaster comes, we have the initial reaction, and that is one of fear. It's one of, I don't understand what's going on. What do I do? And then it is an invitation. Is an invitation for discovery, of going in and discovering how courageous you are, how strong you are, the abilities that you have, and who to reach out to and build a community that can survive this. So I think every time we face challenges, don't look at it as something that's out to get you. It's out to teach you.
So tell me, how did you learn this? Was this just as you progressed through life, or?
I've known many a rabbit hole.
Okay.
I clinically suffer from depression. I know what that's like. There is no reasoning. There's no articulating. You are down in that despair that has no reason, right? And needs to be resolved. I've had many challenges in my life, but I had to discover how strong I was, how courageous I was, that I was so much more than I was led to believe. I had so many more abilities than I thought I had. And you know why the network is called self-discovery. It is in the willingness to discover me from the inside out, my own beautiful divine presence. I became the Sarah that's here today. Whether I resonate with someone or not, that's not up to me. All I have to be is true to me. But it did take a long time to get there. And we have to be willing to take that. And the more we're willing to experience the experience, the quicker we're going to get to understanding the lesson.
Yes. So you said you were led to believe some things. Why do you feel that way, that you were led to believe some things? Is it
society's dictation of how you should be, family's expectation of how you should be, the workforce expectation, the school expectation, everybody's expectation of who you should be, instead of allowing you to become who you're meant to be? You have to give that permission to yourself. You have to give that permission to allow yourself to be enough, to be exploratory, to be on your own beautiful self-discovery and become the essence of who you're really meant to be. No outside influence, unless it's one of beautiful guidance, should affect you. Because nobody else has the right to put you down or tell you you're this or you're a loser or anything else. That's their perspective. You don't have to accept that. You have to look in and be honest with yourself. And do I like who I am? Do I like what I represent? Can I be more? Can I do more? And be willing to take that journey.
And that is one of the reasons that discourages people, that going inside to discover, and to sort through the mental fog, the mental clutter, to sort through the trauma that they've
Yes.
experienced,
Yes.
or some of the limiting beliefs
Mhm.
uh, that they picked up through life. And some of those can be as small as maybe one day on a playground, somebody told a young boy told another young boy, hey, men aren't supposed to cry.
Right.
Boom, there, that
Mm.
limiting belief planted in that young
Yeah.
boy's head. He bottles up his emotions, and he never tells anybody that he's hurting.
No.
And so uh, it's important for those things to be dismantled, but
Yes.
it's also important to understand that, and I'll speak in another parable, this life is a game,
Mhm.
and built into this game called life is difficulty and tragedy.
Mhm.
And there is an opponent in this game called life who wants to kick you when you are down. And so he also is responsible for putting thoughts into a person's head and then fanning the flames so that they go deeper,
Mhm.
or so that that thought of despair gains momentum, or that thought of anxiety gains momentum until you feel it in your chest,
Mhm.
or those thoughts of anger because somebody made fun of your clothes or your shoes, and to come in and our opponent wants to put those seeds of anger into a person's mind so the thoughts gain momentum,
Yeah, they do.
and so that this person um, loses joy, loses their peace of mind,
Yeah.
and flies into a fit of rage.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's also important for people to understand, hey, my opponent in this game is also going to try and put thoughts into my mind. And so every thought that a human being has is not always coming from them.
Mhm. Oh,
And so,
we like to take those thoughts and elaborate on them, don't we? Well, there must be
and
a reason why it's said. There must be a reason why they think this bad of me. And we take it on and become our own self-persecutors.
and so that's that temptation
Mm-hmm.
that happens
Mm-hmm.
with, and so going back to the parable of this, of that snowball of joy, it's
Mm-hmm.
like that temptation to go towards thinking, thinking, and letting your thoughts snowball out of control. Like, so I would say I am more classically someone who is uh, prone to depression,
Mm-hmm.
and so and prone uh, to sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, almost, it's almost as if I desire to have this feeling of sadness. And so I noticed this is I'm evaluating um, my thoughts, and I notice it's like almost it's like I find some sort of comfort in it,
Mm-hmm.
not 100% sure why.
Right.
And so, but there being that temptation to say, hey, this feels comfortable to me. Let me stay comfortable, at least what I feel to be comfortable.
It's also an
It's a
excuse.
and and yes, and so this is why once one comes to understand, okay, I need to defend my joy
Mm.
against going down that that rabbit hole of excuses, or
Abstaining from investing in myself and doing the work. Right.
uh-huh, yeah. And so whether that be like the temptation to procrastinate,
Yes.
It's like, I'll get to it later.
Mm-hmm.
Or even one of these limiting beliefs, I'm too cool to put in too much work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so it's a lot of things that
Yeah.
that people can actually do and put into practice in order to help overcome some of these, or let me back up. Let me not say some, all of
Mm-hmm.
these things that that act to tempt the person to lose their joy.
Yeah.
And so one of them being, and this is a training exercise that I am planning to offer in the future, is singing in public.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so this happened in August of this past year. So I was, God sent me to Germany in August, and part of my training and workout there was to spread joy
Mm-hmm.
and to overcome some of those limiting beliefs that I have. One of them being worried about the potential opinions of other
Yes.
people, as you
Yes.
mentioned before.
Yes.
And so I discovered, hey, after I sang the German version of the Happy Birthday song, or I should say the kid, it's a version catered towards kids.
Mm-hmm.
But after I sang that at the top of my lungs in one of the squares in Munich, um, and God gave me the wisdom to see, hey, you know what you just got over? That worry about other
Mm-hmm.
people's opinions? People struggle with this all the
Yeah.
time in
Yes.
life. And it drives a person to action or inaction.
Yes. And
And
you
so
don't
it's
know
like,
how much joy, just a simple smile, even if it was no good, it's the fact that you stood there and sang, right? You just sang top of your voice. And as people going by, it's they can't help but crack a smile. Like
uh-huh,
there is somebody enjoying themselves. And it
uh-huh.
just for a moment, you've kind of clicked that joy button on. Now they're going to take that joy ignition inside of them and they're going to be more joyful and kinder to the next person they see.
And so I like to say that our mental state is contagious to others.
Yes,
Yeah,
negative or positive.
right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah. And so in a sense, kind of paying it forward, like with joy,
yeah,
it's like, hey, I got this joy and I'm going to spread it. Like you say, smile to a
yeah.
stranger on the street, greet a stranger on the street. Hey, how are you doing?
It's all good
Um,
vibrations.
yeah.
I'm,
And
I'm going to
so,
share a quick little story of me in
uh-huh.
Paris in 1975. I'm visiting a friend who is an artist there, and we're on the Sacre-Cœur steps, and somebody just started drumming a beat, and I just got up and started dancing. And the next thing I know, there are other people with instruments there and other people clapping. And somebody got to know my name and they're chanting my name. And the more people are joining in, the more I'm dancing. I'm just in flow. And then everybody's around there. My friend who's an artist, she only had wax crayons on it, but she drew a picture of me dancing with all these people around me. Then we all got up and we just singing and dancing and playing music and chanting. We went into the Montmartre where everybody then just started dwindling off into their various restaurants and other places. But it was one of those beautiful, impromptu, divine moments that just gave everybody so much joy. I didn't worry about what people were thinking about me at the time. I just had to dance to the music, and then everybody else felt that vibe, and that beautiful frequency just went out. And you know that it's going to ricochet to everyone that affected those people. And it's like, why are we so afraid to do those moments?
And yeah, part of that being what we've both mentioned is like
Mhm.
people are worried about, man, what are they going to think about me? What
You
are
have
they
no
going to think about
control
me?
of what people think about you. You have
And,
none.
um, and yeah, and so it's important once people realize I can overcome this.
Hmm.
I can absolutely overcome this, and I could do it again and again and again and again until I'm in that place where it's like,
It's me.
you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna feed myself with my own
Yes,
happiness, and
exactly.
so it's gonna
You
be
are the joy you
contagious.
seek.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what you put out there is what you're gonna get back.
Yes.
Um, and well, I did want to let me try this to hit on something. I've noticed something, and this is a hypothesis that I'm playing with, is that I can send my thoughts to other people and then they respond. So, for example, if if I'm approaching a person on the street and a thought of fear or thoughts of
Hmm.
fear
Hmm.
are spinning
Hmm.
around, that, as you say, vibration
Yes.
can be picked up from them and can influence them to be standoffish
Yes.
because they kind of picked it
They've
up
picked up that vibe,
and
man. I'm not sure of it.
in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Or this is where our opponent in this game called life will influence me to fear, and then the person that I want to go talk to, he'll influence them to say, "Oh, that person's."
Well,
And
where does
so,
hate come from? It comes from fear.
wait, say that again. You said,
Where does hate come from? It comes from fear. When you're afraid of something you don't understand or you don't know, people begin to hate it because they're afraid of it. They hate the feeling of that fear. So they're distrusting of that source of fear. So why do we see so much discourse in the world? Because there are various leaders and programs and institutions that sell fear. And when you buy the fear, you get into the hate, you get into the violence, you get into the discourse, and it's very hard to have joy if you've chosen that path.
and yeah, that's that temptation for human beings to go towards um, you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back,
Right.
type of thing. Those, in a sense,
The eye for
those
eye, everyone ends up
standard, yeah,
blind. Mm-hmm.
those standard human instincts. But yeah, so to close out on that point in regards to, yeah, that's something that I'm playing with hypothesis wise. It's like, yeah, if and so part of this also involves me understanding the opponent
Mm-hmm.
because he's trying to set people at odds against each
Yeah.
other. And so if he can get me to have thoughts of fear,
Mm-hmm.
then he can tell you, don't talk to him. That
Right.
person is like that person is strange. Look how they're walking.
Yeah.
Um, and so then the person, then you can look at me and say, okay, yeah, something seems a little bit off about them. And he does this in marriages all the time in
Mm-hmm.
regards to how he stirs up a couple to conflict
Mm-hmm.
against each other. It's like puts a thought into the wife's mind. Ah, he didn't squeegee the shower door again. And so, but well, the enemy set up the husband because he put worry on the husband's mind. And so he was so worried, he wasn't able to focus in that moment. And so he got out of the shower, worried about dealing with something else, and he didn't squeegee the door. And so now the opponent has stirred up a situation.
Doubt,
And
mistrust.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so this point to where it can turn into conflict. Maybe he doesn't get them there, but it's like, okay, she goes to the kitchen. I thought he was going to put away the dishes. And so it's like, so the opponent is trying to find all of these little small things. So
To
they can
hide
build
the big thing that's there, which is just,
and that's part of it as
yeah.
well. But to stir a person up to frustration, because there are only so many times the natural human being can get upset about something before they react
Yeah.
in anger, or they enter into the revenge cycle,
Right.
which
Well, which, case in point to the intro with you, there's so many fatherless sons and daughters out there, right? That the marriage breaks down, or there's somebody, well, I'm not going to be with you then, and off they go. And then it's the children that are suffering because they immediately think it's their fault. They must have done something, or they're unlovable, right? If you loved me, you would have stayed. And they don't realize it's actually the parents that are causing the conflict that unfortunately the child becomes the victim of.
and so that is one of the reasons why it's wise to get people prepared to enter into marriage.
Yes.
To understand, hey, when I enter into marriage with my husband, when I enter into marriage with my wife, we're coming together as a team, and we're going to defend our love. And so it's like, okay, we're going to put dates on the schedule. We're going to put relaxation time on our schedule. We're going to abide by that schedule. We are going to work through self-worth issues. We're going to
support one another.
Yeah. We are going to write poems to each other. We are going to do all of these things to make sure that we're boxing out, in a sense, thinking of basketball, like boxing out those things that want to come in
and infiltrate.
Yeah, and steal a couple's love, because that it affects the kids, and it ripples
the dysfunction of society. And I have a whole series on the Forgotten Children series, and it's if we invest in our children when they're young and show them how to love, how to be love, how to always plant that seeds of love, and how to nurture them and grow, we wouldn't have such a dysfunctional adult society. But they come from brokenness, and it's how do they heal? They have to heal their inner child before they can embrace themselves as an adult. And if we can prevent that from that happening, and two people, they come together in love, why do they end up parting in such hate? You've let the hate win. And what really was it about? A lack of communication, maybe a lack of respect. Had you had the ability to sit down and just communicate with each other of why you're feeling this way, the pimple wouldn't have become a volcanic eruption. That is their problem.
And so that is unforgiveness in a nutshell, is that pimple turns into a volcanic eruption.
Yeah.
Because once a person enters the revenge cycle, you cannot escape unless you forgive.
Right.
And so forgiveness between a husband and a wife needs to be communication.
Yes.
It's like we need to get down to the root cause of what is why this is
an issue at
bother.
all.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. We need to break out the shovels,
Mm-hmm.
and if need be, get the kids involved,
Mm-hmm.
because
They're great
because
observers. They'll call you on it. They will.
and and additionally, kids are their parents combined from a
Mm-hmm.
different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I'm you, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm you from this perspective, and I can see
Mm-hmm.
this. So like,
Don't dismiss your children's
team
point of view.
teamwork,
Yes.
teamwork,
Yes.
and and it does take practice to be able to hear out other people. It takes humility practice, to be able to get to the point where it's like, well, you know what? I don't have everything figured out, and I
Right.
do need help.
You have to shut your own inner dialogue off in order to hear someone else. Because
Mhm.
people hear ready to respond or attack back. Right. So if you're just willing to shut down your own inner dialogue and just listen, listen and let that listening switch on what needs to respond to in a loving way, because we're all can be in pain. Why are we in pain? Where does that pain come from? I said this, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I wish you had called me on it right there and then, and we would have dealt with it.
With
But
it.
we don't feel safe to call each other on things. And we should do. We should feel safe. You know what? That irks me. Can we just change your approach on that? Right. And
Mhm.
then they're aware that irks her, or vice versa. And then you get to know each other's boundaries and each other's flow. And the more you do that, the more you step into the flow, the less confrontation you have.
and and this is why, and I'll point this out again, it's important for people to get prepared,
Yeah.
for marriage, so that they can, have that ability to work
Yes.
through, discussions. And one thing that people can be practicing at a very early age is to write.
Yes.
And the reason why I say that is, not only can it help a person clear up their thoughts, which can reduce frustration, but it also forces a person to slow down.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's like that first thought that always comes into your
Mm-hmm.
mind, if someone does something that seems like it offended you, the first thought that always comes to your mind may not always be your own thought.
Yeah.
And
Defense
additionally,
forward.
it doesn't need to always, excuse me, it a person should be slower to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so doing things like writing, can influence a person to,
And then read what you've written. Right.
yeah.
If you are actually, I learned this quite early on in my own marriage, that having a conversation sometimes could be hard because the defense went up. So I learned to write what I wanted to
Mhm.
say. But the first thing that you write, a lot of the anger comes out. Okay, now you've written
Mhm.
it. Let's take that out and
Clean
let's
it up.
stick to the point, and let's talk to, how to resolve it. Hand it over to the person to read and say, when you're ready to discuss it,
Mhm.
digest it when you're ready. Don't demand it's all done now. No, pause, take a breath, center yourself, and then come at each other with love and not in defense.
Indeed, indeed. And so that's, yeah, that's good strategy that, people should employ. Kids should be taught, like, right out whenever
Yes.
you, like, for 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 some discussions,
Mm-hmm.
before going into the discussion, right. And this way, well, one of the reasons it can influence a person to slow down is because, well, if you're writing a letter that you want to send off, um, you
You're more
don't want to
mindful.
yeah, you don't want to that, and you also, don't want to have to rewrite it. And so it's like, okay, well, let me think about this,
What do I
to make
really
sure.
want to say? Yeah.
Right. And and it's also good to write the last sentence first.
Mm.
So now your writing is aimed at a specific point. And so now you want to write, and this can help clean up thoughts so you can get to that point. Yeah. It may not always be the last sentence, because you might be like, okay, that's what I wanted, but now I see another sentence that can follow. But it's a good thing to have
focus
in
on, to target,
to begin with the end in mind. Sometimes, well, let me not add that point, but yeah, I really noticed this with some of the poetry that I write. Like, I'll have this one line where I'm like, yeah, I like that line. And then the poem just comes together to get to that, point. And it's like,
I do many a show. I do my own shows, Sarah's View of Life, every week. And sometimes I may only have a word or a sentence. I just want to address that. And I literally press the button, or maybe I write it first, or sometimes press the button, write it afterwards. But I know that that is what I want to address. And then I just go in flow and let it go.
Wait, what do you mean you press the button and then?
Well, I record it, because I do my own show every week, right? So I just record it, and I allow it to grow and evolve. And sometimes I may write it out first because it wants to be written. And sometimes it's just a word there that I want to address, and I press the button and let it verbalize, and then I write it.
Okay.
Right. So it's this is the aim of what I'm wanting to address. Right. But you let yourself go and address it and let it unravel. Let it come to that conclusion, so that when you get to what you have addressed, it makes sense.
And I would say, I believe I understand what you're saying. And let me see if this practice.
Much like your poetry.
Okay, so it's like, yeah, I'm getting there, bam, got there. Okay. Yes. And there is, I did this, I think sometime last year around this time. It's like, I would just start kind of talking to myself, talk on a point that I wanted to work out. And so I talk to see if I could find the essence of what it is that I needed to get to. Is that kind of what you were describing?
Yeah, it's like I might just simply have a word like gratitude. Right. Okay. I want to speak about gratitude, and then it would be, what just the flow would come out of all the things that we can be grateful for. And if we fed the gratitude with a positive attitude, we would see more things to be grateful for. So it just, as you go in that beautiful flow, you see more and more and more and more and more reasons to be grateful. All right. And they just pour right out. So, that's very often the way I do things. When I write or
press the button and go.
And go. Yes, it's the same when I write too. It's just let it go, and then you may edit it to grammar and spelling afterwards. But most of the time, I just let it go into the flow, because it's the message basically I look upon from the divine that it wants to give me, or that I need to give out.
And you know what? That is something that that I have practiced on the street as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes because I discovered that if God has told me, so I'm walking down the street, if God has told me to talk to that person who's walking up to me, if I think too much and say, okay, let me make sure the first thing that comes out of my mouth is perfect, the opportunity is missed. Or just that overthinking, I open my mouth and it's and so sometimes I have discovered that in some situations, it is good to just open or act in faith, and then the good result will come.
But it's like what you said before. You can go down, I'm afraid of that person, that frequency is already gone. Now, if you're approaching someone and you want to approach someone with joy and goodwill, they're going to receive the vibration before you even get there to open your mouth.
And I would say there is I've experienced that, and I've not experienced that.
Yeah,
It's
it all
almost like
depends where the
some
person
people
is. Some people, the
is
vibes hits them, they're open and ready to receive.
right,
Other people, they're
right.
too much in the fear. And they're, oh
Yeah.
no, he's out to get me,
Uh-huh.
because that's where they're at. So
uh-huh.
if you've got the
Yeah.
people that are open, that means they're
Hmm.
actually looking for joy. They're looking for that
And
connection.
so when they see it, they're like, oh, that's
Yes. Yeah. I
there
didn't
it
know
is,
I
right?
needed this today. Right? We
um,
can speak to a dozen people and maybe it's only one that's receptive. But that's okay,
mhm.
because that one's receptiveness now becomes a domino effect in their own lives.
Correct. And things multiply and
Exactly.
grow.
Yeah, it's never
And
about the numbers. It's just about even having the impact of the one. And we see these pop-up singers and performers, in railway line, railway stations and this and that. Somebody starts singing, and then other people come in and start singing. It's all kind of planned, but then it
mhm.
looks like it's impromptu. And some people would just join in, and other people would just stand there smiling and enjoying it. And I think somewhere along the line we forgot to be, just in the
Uh,
now and in the moment, and just share the joy of our lives. If we're having a good
uh,
day, why aren't we sharing it?
and having that moment of sunshine to share with
Yes.
other people.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And
I'm a firm believer that, positive thinking equals positive living. But I'm a firm believer is that we plant our own seeds. If we forget to water them and nurture them, they're not going to grow.
mm,
Equally, if we look at them and we demand them to grow, we tug at their roots, they're not going to grow fruitfully. If we plant them with good faith, if we plant them with love, and we water them and nurture them, they're going to grow beyond any form of expectation. Be
mhm.
careful what you water. Be careful what you
What
seed.
you, yes, yes, because what a man sows, that
Mm-hmm.
he shall also reap.
Yes.
Yeah,
And if you're
yeah,
getting a pile of doo-doo, what are you planting?
uh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right? Be
yeah. And
careful of your
so,
seeds. What is the intent of those seeds? And yes, you want to
mhm,
nourish your own soul, your own spirit, your own heart. Why? Because the more you are, the more you can share that divine essence in service with others.
mhm. Yeah, yes, the more that you have to give.
Yes.
Yeah, and so this is this is why I'm hopeful for uh, everybody on the planet, because
Mm,
I know that everybody can get there.
yes.
Um, a, a lot of it involves first understanding the fundamentals and the tools in
Hmm.
order to play this game called life, then having someone show you how to do it, and then put it into practice, and then again and again put it into practice until
Until you step into
now
your own light.
it becomes conditioned response to
Yes.
when you're walking down the street. It's like, oh, hey, you see a stranger, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
um and so to get rid of old habits
Mm,
are
not serving
that are not
anyone.
serving.
No.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's not serving anyone, and it's actually making me
Holding you back.
miserable. It's
Yeah.
making the person
Hmm.
miserable. And so um
We've got to own our
yeah.
misery, haven't we? I mean, if we're miserable, what are we miserable about? We can't control often what happens to us, but we can control with what we're going to do with it.
Mhm.
And life is about a process. You're going to get knocked down. It's how do you get back up? How do you find your strength and your courage? How do you discover your abilities? And how do you use them for the betterment of mankind? So every time you get knocked down, it's not the world out to get you. It will keep you down if you want to be, why me?
Mhm.
But it's also an invitation to get back up and make another discovery of what else you can do. We're beautifully flawsome as a human race. We're meant to be flawed. Like a beautiful diamond is flawed, but it's through our flawsomeness that we discover our awesomeness. And then when we step into that, you want world peace? Be the peace. You want love? Be the love. You want joy? Be the joy. You want abundance? Be the abundance. You have to be it to attract it, to share it.
And additionally, a person needs to be prepared to go through the process in order to get to that point, or that person needed to have gone through the process, and then they can say, hey, I went through this, and this happened, and so now I can help you better, and
they're the
I
best
can
teachers, those that have
understand
gone through it.
where you are coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand the struggles that you are
Yes.
having. Don't worry, we'll get through this together. We'll get that victory together. Yeah.
Inspiration begets invitation. Just like you were inspired by this one woman, 5 foot dark, walking into a guy swinging an axe that nobody else know what to do with. Hand me over that axe. Now let's sort out this reform. Clearly this is not working. When people get to that desperation, it's because something's not working. They're pushed to the limit. And if somebody coming in and saying, I see what's broken, let's fix it, you're handing them that hand of hope that you can make something better. She went in and handed them the gift of hope. So he was willing to surrender and hand her the bat, the axe, right? If he'd been met with more violence, he would have defended. But he was met with solution, calmness. Okay, let's fix this. And whenever you're in a problem, you want somebody to say, let's fix this. Let's get to the root of the problem so we can fix this. And most of the time it's because people are frustrated. They're not heard, they're not seen, they don't understand what they're going through. And they just need somebody to say, I see you, I hear you. Okay, we can do this. You can do this. I'll help you.
And so that's another reason why it's good for people to spread that joy to a stranger, because you don't know what that person that smile, that greeting, because I've noticed this with myself. Like this was probably about September of this year, September, October. My mind was racing because I'm like, I ran into this issue and now I need to resolve it. And so I'm like so focused in my head. And then I remember I can't remember, excuse me, someone greeted me in some way, shape, or form. It was either a wave or a smile. They did something. And then it helped me snap out of my
turning wheels.
Out of that trip down a rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh, yes. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's helpful for other people as well.
Yes.
And so sometimes
we've been conditioned to work in the last century or so. Emphasis has been on education, which is wonderful. But what is the point of all that knowledge if you don't know how to use it? And I believe that the soul can only speak through an open heart. And when that soul, that divine wisdom comes through an open heart in resonance, it's given to the spirit into action, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And it's called clarity. But if we're only thinking from the chin up, it's always yes, but what if? But yeah, but what if that problem? But if I do this, what about that? And we're just constantly going on a hamster wheel. When we feel the wisdom, we feel the knowledge, we understand what to do with that knowledge and how to put it into play to be productive.
So I just want to see if I heard you correctly. So you feel like with too much education, a person is overly logical,
too much in their head, and they haven't ignited the heart, soul, and spirit.
Okay, so in a sense, they're letting their logical systems override their emotional systems when they should be
incorporating
working in sync.
Yes. You know, God, divine, whichever you want to call it, that beautiful source of wisdom, that knowledge that comes through us, which has such clarity that you don't need to verify, validate, or justify. It just is. It opens up our heart and it goes into our spirit interaction. And everything that we have in our database in our mind, what we need to know at that moment, for that problem, or for that particular thing we have to do, will automatically download, like putting money in a machine and getting your Coca-Cola out, right? I don't know which one to choose, if I choose this one or if I choose that one, and the divine just says, this button, this is what you need. Right?
Yeah, so
and then it's just clarity without having to overthink it, because now you, instead of thinking, you're doing. And you're doing with purpose, meaningful purpose that's going to have a positive reaction, instead of thinking.
Yeah, that'll indeed get a person, and that takes training to overcome that.
Yes.
To be like, you know what? And sometimes that overthinking is, I'm afraid to make a mistake,
which again is a head thing.
You're
when you
right.
incorporate the heart and the soul,
Yeah.
the heart and soul doesn't look at anything. It is just do. What will be, will be. It is what's meant to be.
And then, yeah, and so
Like
get
God
them
has
working
told
in
you to go,
sync.
Croatia, Germany, God's told you to go and do these things. Did you question God? Did you get into your head and go, God, why do you want me to go there? Or did you go, God has told me, and you've gone and you've just done in trust, in faith, with an open heart?
I've had some back and forth with God. I'm like, are you sure I'm not? I remember.
That's just being in your head.
Yeah. And so I remember there was one time I was, in a sense, delivering a small sermon to a group, or excuse me, I was asked to deliver a small sermon. And there was something that I had been working on at one point, and it wasn't for that, but I'm like, oh, I can go with this. And then God's like, no, do this. I'm like, this is prepared. He's like, do this. I'm like, but this. I'm like, I'm like this. I'm like, I haven't touched that yet.
Yes.
I like this, and he's like, no, do this. And then I'm like, yeah, I'll do.
You know what? Don't bother arguing with God.
Yeah.
God wins out every time.
I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then it's like, boom. I'm glad I did that.
Exactly.
And so this is how he continuously stirs me up to more and more faith.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like that time he said do that. That time he said do that.
He's clarity.
And 2-3 months later,
yes.
It's like, whoa.
Right.
It's like, I'm so glad I did that. Yeah.
And you know, something will come to an end and not work, and you've put a lot of effort behind it, and you go, but why didn't it work? Everything was, you know, T's crossed, I's dotted. Why didn't it work? And it's just simply a little voice. It wasn't meant to. Right? Maybe you were meant to learn something from it,
go through the process,
but to use it in a different direction, right? Because everything that we learn along the way, whether it's the wrong path or not, we're always learning something from it that we will need to apply in the right direction at some point in time.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll say, hopefully we're always learning something, because
that is the point, folks. That is the point.
Yeah, because it's
to learn through your life.
A person's mind can be closed for a number of things, but just like not having the gratitude,
right?
And that can close a person down from learning what they need to learn in that.
I have an exercise for people for that. It's when I was doing my spiritual counseling course, is on a piece of paper in 2 columns, write down all the things that you're angry about or negative about, or you feel the world is out to get you. Write it down in 1 column. Then go for a walk, come back, and now write all the things to be grateful for. Right? And as you write all the grateful things, go and look at the other things and go, are you denying yourself all of this gratitude because you've chosen to put your emphasis on all of the negativity? What you feed will grow. Feed the gratitude. you'll see the other row get smaller and smaller
And
and
smaller.
smaller.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, indeed.
It's up to us, isn't it? It's up to us.
It is. It's up to us, and making sure that we are, as you mentioned before, in communities that are supporting our spiritual growth, and sometimes we need to be in places where we are in loneliness as
Yeah.
well. So this way
Yes.
we can
But is it
perfect
when,
our characters.
yeah, but if you're in loneliness, it means you're not connected with self and with the divine. When you are alone with self, it's a beautiful place to be. It's only lonely if you haven't really gone in and found peace within yourself, right?
Right. And so, yeah, so it's like I'm away from people, but I'm so connected to
Yes,
God that
I
it,
love my alone time.
and you know what, that's where I would love to, that's where I would love, and I'm striving to get people to, it's like, hey, you can enjoy your alone time
Yes,
when you are uh, connected to God, and you are
because you're
thriving
never
in your
alone.
joy.
You are
Right, right,
you
right.
are at one with self, but you are never ever alone.
Alone. Indeed, indeed. Well, ma'am, I feel that we could talk for a while, but there
Mm-hmm.
are some other things that are coming
Yes,
up on
it's
my
late for
schedule.
you over there, right? You're in
It's
Germany right now?
right now, I'm in Zagreb, Croatia.
All right. Well, I've had
Yes, sir.
Germany, Australia, and now Croatia and England this week, so I've really been around the world.
Okay, okay.
And
Uh,
Croatia, I know it's a very beautiful place with some very beautiful people. So, really enjoy your time there because you were sent there for a reason, and just allow the
mhm,
reason to become
mhm.
to guide you.
Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from England,
Okay,
England, South Africa, America, and now Canada. So,
okay. All right,
BC
cool.
Canada. But yes, I mean, I love to travel. Haven't done it in a while, but yeah, it's when we open up to the experiences of other worlds, other countries, other cultures, it just expands a whole beautiful. Look at it as a smorgasbord just to partake from and experience, and it's wonderful. So I highly recommend travel to people. Learn other cultures. Don't think you are the supreme. Take ego out of the equation, right?
And expand your perspective.
Exactly, exactly. So, how do people get all this beautiful wisdom of yours? I know that you're only actually on Instagram, but this is where you share all your wisdom and all your lovely nuggets. So, will you give your Instagram account, please?
Okay, so the most ideal way is for people to book a flight, come to Zagreb. But so my Instagram is at Emmanuel Enime.
Can you spell that for the
And
people who are just listening, please?
yeah, yes, ma'am. So it's E like Exodus, M like Matthew, M like Matthew, A like adventure, N like Noah, U like unicorn, E like Exodus, L like love, E like Exodus, N like Noah, I like Israel, M like Matthew, E like Exodus. And it's all one word, Emmanuel and May. And so, yeah, you can find me there. And that's where I am right now, helping people understand the fundamentals and tools in order to play this game called life. And once people understand, then I show myself going through or training exercises, or explain training exercises that I've done with God. And then the time will come where I will call people and say, come here to the square and we will do this, whether that be singing in public,
Mhm.
or practicing uh, other things
The
like
beautiful outer spoken
greeting
word, right?
greeting strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
hmm
indeed.
Yeah. It's, whatever you're called upon to do. Please, folks, don't worry about what other people think about you. You have no control of it. You could be walking down the street, minding your own business, doing nothing, and somebody will still have an opinion of you. It's their business, not yours. As long as they don't attack you, you're okay. So if you wish to step out and sing, there's a couple of people I've interviewed. One is on the kindness thing. He just goes and randomly does random acts of kindness to people. And then there's somebody else who it's all about the smile campaign and about sharing the smile and having the smile grow. We need these campaigns. We need this in our lives, because when we smile, we actually change our entire energy within our body, which is actually becomes much healthier for our mind, body, and soul. But now we're set on a different frequency, and we can share that smile with others and set them off on the right path as well. So never, ever underestimate the beauty of joy in a smile, in kindness, in an act, in just being you.
Yeah, and feed your own happiness.
Yes.
Feed you smile to someone, and that can feed your own happiness.
And be enriched and abundant. Let your cup runneth over. You can never be too rich in kindness and love and joy. Never.
Excited.
Yes. Thank you for sharing with us here today, Emmanuel, and for listening to God and just going where you need to go and doing that divine work and having people connect within. The more we shut out the outside expectation chatter and go in to that divine, beautiful clarity, the more we can become who we're meant to be, which is part of the solution and part of the beautiful process and progress of life.
Yeah, I'm happy to serve, and I'm looking forward to watching other people blossom.
Yes. Yes. I call these shows the orchard of wisdom ready for clicking. Each tree is filled with abundance of wonderful wisdom. Don't be afraid to pick it. Don't be afraid to bite into that beautiful fruit and become that beautiful tree yourself, right?
As what is the Croatian word for yes is da. Da.
Thank you so much for being with us here today. And to remember everyone else, just practice a little, act of a smile, looking at someone as they go by. Good day, great day, have a good day. Throw it over your shoulder and see how people catch it. You never know how intoxicating it can be. So if you want to see joy, learn to be joy. And that means switching off all that negative chatter and going into that beautiful essence of who you are and letting your light shine bright. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Please tune in to our selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see all the other genres that we have from you. Every week on Tuesday, we bring you new shows from illuminating people. If you know someone that should be interviewed, please contact us at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com. Now stay tuned for your next show.